Angela Merkel has made her final trip to the Balkans as German Chancellor. The world's most powerful woman is also regarded as the embodiment of European stability and solidarity. She's always been a vocal supporter of the EU expanding its membership, even though Croatia was the only Western Balkan nation to join the bloc during her 4 terms. In a moment, I'll ask what the future without Merkel holds for the Western Balkans. Bodo Weber is a senior associate of the Democratization Policy Council, concentrating on the Western Balkans, German and European foreign policy. He's in Berlin for us. Thanks so much for your time, Mr. Weber. You are quite an expert on this topic. I'm really lucky to discuss this with you today. With Angela Merkel leaving, how different will be a approach from the strongest EU country, Germany, towards the Western Balkans? And what do we know about the opinions and stances and approaches of Armin Laschet and Olaf Scholz about the region?
Well, thank you first for having me. Yes, this is a very urgent topic. Ms. Merkel is leaving after 15 years or 16 years of chancellorship, in which she really had seized leadership within the EU and the West, one could say, on the Western Balkans, on various levels and various initiatives. And there's a lot of worries in Europe, but particularly in the Western Balkan region, where there will be continuity. I would say, to your question, there are 2 aspects. One is we unfortunately, and that's about concluding about her heritage. Her role had been weakening over the last couple of years, and on many initiatives where she had really moved the EU forward on enlargement, keeping the membership perspective open, on the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue, on the regional initiative, the so-called Berlin process, things had started to move in the last 5-6 years in the opposite, wrong direction. So in a way, one would say what is needed is not continuity under a new chancellor and a new government, but a reset of German EU enlargement and Western Balkan policy, a stronger policy, starting with picking a fight with French President Macron, who has basically undermined the enlargement perspective and who is genuinely against enlargement.
Right, and one of the reasons why the Balkans is shifting away from the EU, we've heard that in our story just before you, and for this rise of disappointment in the EU is the slow progress when it comes to the accession talks. Many in the region were angry when Merkel did not stand up to French President Emmanuel Macron, blocking the North Macedonia and Albania, as you recall. So the fact that the West didn't show the lack of unity when it comes to its approach to the Western Balkans didn't help. Why do you think the EU countries can't agree on how to proceed with the enlargement process?
Well, I mean, first we have to let me remind you that since the Euro crisis, 2009, and the world economic crisis, we and the EU being in permanent crisis mode, which made on the other side the crucial, dominant role of Merkel within the EU as the crisis manager. There is enlargement skepticism, and there is this legitimate question of whether the EU needs to reform itself internally on the Eurozone, but also on other issues. The problem with illiberal member states, that's really questioning the union as a political union, a union of democratic values with Hungary and Poland and other countries in the meanwhile. So whether, the EU is ready to receive more countries, I would say that a lesson that at least, and that made the important leading role of Merkel is that she, like others, like I also and my colleagues advocate, understood that the EU doesn't have that luxury, of saying we're going to first reform the EU internally and then do enlargement. So it needs to be done both at the same time, because if we drop the ball like we did more or less over the last 3 years with discrediting, undermining the credibility of enlargement and thus of the EU in the region, we will see a return to unfulfilled nationalistic agendas, instability, and ultimately maybe even ethnic violence and crisis.
Then let me bring in Bosnia and Herzegovina now. One of the latest moves that Merkel did was appointing the new High Representative Christian Schmidt, a new UN peace envoy. Was this a signal that Merkel thinks she is leaving unfinished work in Bosnia, that Bosnia is still an unstable country that needs more Berlin's presence in the future?
Exactly, I would say so. I mean, this appointment, this nomination had become a big mystery to many people in the region, in Bosnia itself, in Western capitals. Um, Primarily because Bosnia was one of the countries where Merkel had been engaged from time to time, but not in such a lead role with such a decisive initiative like it had been the formation establishment, let's say in 2011, 12, 13, of the political dialogue Kosovo-Serbia, the EU-led one. So Germany, in particularly Merkel, has left unfinished business. And my understanding is that this, exactly as your question pointed to, was a kind of awareness of Merkel on her way out, that she has left a lot of unfinished business in the Balkans, but particularly complicated and challenging Bosnia. So the idea to appoint Mr. Schmidt, as it came directly from conversation between Mr. Schmidt himself and Chancellor Merkel, obviously was related to such an understanding that Germany needs to, or she needs to do something, what she can do before leaving office, or as she's leaving office, to keep Germany on the Bosnia issue. So in a way, this is at least hoped by Mr. Schmidt and Ms. Merkel, that this will guarantee that the next chancellor, whoever that will be, and apart from coming back to your original question, Ms. Baerbock, I don't see that neither Mr. Laschet nor Mr. Scholz really have the Balkan on their radar, let alone Bosnia. That this, role of the former minister of the Merkel government would be a kind of, bind for the future government to stick to the region. Now, the only problem that I see that is left here is that was the problem with the Merkel policy towards Bosnia throughout the whole last 15 years, is that she did not engage, or Berlin did not engage on a strategic level. We are lacking a strategic long-term EU and Western policy on Bosnia. That's part of the reason why this a vacuum occurred over the last 15 years, and which led to this permanent crisis in the country. So on top of Mr. Schmidt's nomination, and one of the tasks of Mr. Schmidt in engaging with the future German government is to push Berlin future government on an initiative, on a real long-term comprehensive strategy for an EU Bosnia policy.
Okay, Mr. Weber, a lot of unfinished work after Angela Merkel, a tough job for the next German chancellor to balance all this. A lot of challenges in front of Christian Schmidt too. But thank you so much for helping us understand all this. Bodo Weber, there, a senior associate of the Democratization Policy Council in Berlin for us. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you for having me again.